I remember the lace. That's where my memory always lands when I think back to our wedding. Not the vows or the music, not even the nervous laugh she let out when her veil caught on the boutonniere I'd clumsily pinned. No, it's the lace. Delicate, hand-stitched by some artisan in a small French village she'd read about in a bridal magazine. I paid extra for that. I paid extra for a lot of things. The whole wedding was her vision, not mine. But I was in love, or something close enough to it that I mistook it for permanence. You know how people say they just knew? I didn't. I hoped. There's a difference. I hoped it would last. I hoped she meant the things she whispered in the dark when our hands found each other across the sheets. I hoped, and then I signed checks. Big ones. We'd been together 4 years before the proposal. I was the quiet type, a builder, of code, mostly. Started a software company out of my apartment, eating cheap pizza and pulling all-nighters until things started to click. The money didn't come fast, but when it came all at once. 2 acquisitions and a licensing deal later, I was in my early 30s with more money than sense, and she was already in my life. Her name was Brenna. She was the type who never had to try too hard to be noticed. Not flashy, just present in a way that made the air feel different. We met at a fundraiser. She was pouring wine for guests. We started talking about books, Vonnegut, if I remember right, and before I knew it, I was asking for her number with all the awkward grace of a high schooler. She moved in 6 months later. The wedding became her full-time job not long after the proposal. She didn't want a planner. I want every detail to feel like us, she said, spinning around our living room with her laptop in one hand and a mood board in the other. I smiled. I was already working 70-hour weeks back then, long enough hours to keep my guilt at bay when I handed her another credit card. What was I supposed to do, say no? She cried when she found the venue, some rustic chic vineyard an hour out of town with an arched trellis and string lights that twinkled like something out of a Hallmark movie. Do you think we're doing too much? I asked once, after she'd added a second dress to the list. She kissed my cheek. You're not marrying a minimalist, babe. I remember chuckling. My fiancé, so full of life, of style, of details. So many details I couldn't keep up. The morning of the wedding, I was a nervous wreck. Not because I doubted her, but because I doubted myself. Could I be what she needed? She came from a different world than I did. Her father owned car dealerships. Her mother wore pearls to brunch. I came from discount groceries and a 2-bedroom house that shook when trains passed. Her people didn't understand mine, and maybe she didn't either. But she said she loved me, said I grounded her, made her feel safe. I took her at her word. The ceremony was perfect. She walked down the aisle like it had been rehearsed in a dream. Her father cried. I nearly did too. Afterward, during the reception, she whispered, "You made this happen. You made my dream come true." I held her close, kissed her forehead, and thought, this is it. We've arrived. We honeymooned in Italy, her choice again. We sipped Prosecco in Venice, danced barefoot on the coast, got matching key tattoos in a drunken impulse in Florence. I told myself this was what love looked like, spontaneous, immersive, full of shared dreams. The first 6 months of marriage felt like a glide. Everything she wanted, I provided. A new apartment, a renovated kitchen, her own studio for interior design consultations, even though she barely took any clients. She liked the idea of work more than the work itself, but I didn't mind. I wanted her to feel fulfilled. And then, the little things started to shift. Missed dinners. Half-listened conversations. Her phone always on silent, flipped face down. I chalked it up to stress. She said she was planning to launch a blog, some lifestyle thing with affiliate links and branded candles. I supported it. Even bought her a camera and a custom domain. "You're the most generous man I've ever met," she told me one night, draping herself over me on the couch, wine glass in hand. I smiled. But somewhere inside me, something felt misaligned. Like a table with one leg just slightly shorter than the rest. Then came the ring. It was a Wednesday, midweek. Nothing special on the calendar. She was out when the call came from her jeweler. They'd found the ring she'd left for resizing, ready for pickup. I was confused. "I think you've got the wrong guy," I said. "Is this Mr. Carver?" "Yeah." "Then it's definitely you. The ring is under your wife's name, but the account's yours." I stared at the phone like it had spoken a different language. My wife had a ring under my name I didn't know about. And that's when the knots in my stomach started to form, tight and slow. When she came home, I didn't say anything. I just watched her move around the kitchen, humming to herself, light on her feet. I wanted to ask, wanted to demand, but something stopped me, some part of me that needed to see where this would lead. That night, after she fell asleep, I went through her purse. I know how that sounds. I didn't want to be that guy. But curiosity isn't always innocent. It's a door you open without knowing how heavy it'll be when it swings back. There it was, a small velvet box, tucked between her lip gloss and wallet. I opened it. It wasn't the ring I gave her. It was thinner, different setting. A small stone, modest but intimate. Too intimate. And inside the band, there was an inscription. Yours always, C. My name doesn't start with C. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the woman I thought I knew, listening to her breathe like nothing was wrong. But something was. Something deep. And it was wearing a second ring. The next morning, I made her coffee. Just like always. Oat milk, 1 sugar, pinch of cinnamon. She smiled sleepily, wrapped in the robe I bought her on our honeymoon. She kissed my cheek. Said, "You spoil me." I almost asked her right then. Almost said, "Do I? Even now? Even with what you're hiding?" But I didn't. I watched her sip the coffee like nothing was different. Like the night before, I hadn't sat in our bathroom with a second ring in my palm, staring at the engraving over and over again. Yours always, C. I memorized the inscription. It etched itself into me. It wasn't just a ring, it was a message, an echo from someone I didn't know existed. She left for her yoga class mid-morning. That's what she called it, yoga. But that day, I followed her. I kept my distance. Parked across the street. She never went inside the yoga studio. She walked past it, 3 blocks down, and entered a cafe I'd never seen her mention. 15 minutes later, a man joined her. Tall, bearded, a soft tan jacket, and that look. The one people wear when they think they've been led into something private and sacred. He kissed her cheek like he'd done it before. Too familiar. Too natural. I sat in my car and stared until my hands went numb. Not from the cold. From the truth unspooling itself in my chest like a slow-motion car crash. The ring made sense now. So did the sudden solo dinners, the locked phone, the new perfume she said came in a PR package. I'd been funding her dream life, but apparently, I wasn't the only one giving her gifts. I didn't confront her that day. I needed more. Needed to see the whole picture before I said anything. That's how my brain works. I collect, then act. That night, she came home humming. She made pasta. We watched a movie. She curled into my side like nothing was wrong. But I knew. I knew enough now that the silence between us wasn't empty. It was loaded. Over the next week, I found more. The receipts came first. In the trash, carelessly torn, not shredded. A boutique I'd never heard of. A weekend getaway charged to a card she said she never used. I cross-referenced the dates. They matched the nights she'd said she was staying at her friend Morgan's. Funny, Morgan posted an Instagram story from Seattle those same days. Alone. Then I found the letter. It was in her desk drawer, inside an envelope with no stamp. No address. Just for you, in looping handwriting. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that. But I did. It started simple. I've never felt this way before. Not with him. Not with anyone. And then it said it. This ring is a promise. Not for the world. Just for us. My throat tightened. My fingers trembled as I kept reading. Mentions of someday, of when it's our time. No names. But again, yours, always, C. That letter never mentioned me. Never referenced our marriage. It read like I didn't exist. Like our wedding never happened. Like she'd taken everything I'd built and re-gifted the parts of herself I thought were mine. I folded the letter back into the envelope. Put it exactly where I found it. The next few days, I moved differently. Smiled like I meant it. Laughed at her jokes. Kissed her back. All the while, something in me changed. Not rage. Not even sadness. Something quieter. Something slower. Like watching the tide slip out, knowing it's not coming back. I began making arrangements. Quietly. I met with my attorney. Reviewed the prenup she'd insisted we skip because we were building a life together. I had been. She, apparently, was building a secret. I locked down my accounts. Reviewed my property holdings. Transferred assets into a trust. A new one. One she didn't know about. I needed to make sure that when the moment came, when the mask slipped off, she wouldn't be able to touch the foundation I'd built. It was a Tuesday when the cracks really began to show. I came home early. She wasn't expecting me. I walked in and saw her sitting on the couch, phone in hand, her voice soft and playful. Not her work voice. Not her friend voice. A different one. One I'd never heard before. I didn't say anything. Just stood in the hallway, listening. "I miss you already," she whispered. "I don't care about the trip. I just want you." Then silence. A small laugh. That same laugh she used to give me when we first started dating. The kind that made me believe in things I didn't have words for. That laugh didn't belong to me anymore. She froze when she saw me. "Hey, you're home early," she said, too quickly. Her phone disappeared into her pocket. Yeah, traffic was light. We stood there in the quiet. She moved toward me like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just carved my name out of her life with a whisper. I let her kiss me. Let her smile. Let her talk about dinner plans. And then, after she went upstairs to shower, I opened my laptop and typed one line into my notes app. I paid for her dream wedding. And now I know why she cried walking down the aisle. She wasn't walking toward me. She was walking away. There's a certain kind of stillness you feel the moment after a truth settles in your bones. Not panic. Not anger. Just stillness. Like the second before a storm breaks overhead. That's how I felt the morning I decided to return the ring. Not mine. Hers. Not the one I'd slipped onto her finger in front of 130 guests and a trembling officiant. The other one. The one meant for someone else. I waited until she left for her weekend retreat. Some wellness getaway. She said her blog followers expected her to post about. I knew better. The bearded man from the cafe? He'd posted a story the last time she went off-grid. Same view. Same deck chairs. Same laugh in the background. She left around noon. I waited an hour, just to be sure, then walked into our bedroom. Her purse was on the dresser, the same place she always left it. I unzipped the inside pocket and pulled out the velvet box. It was still there. I turned it in my hands like a question I wasn't ready to ask. Then I took it downstairs, sat at our kitchen table, and placed it in front of me. And waited. Not for her. For myself. I sat in that chair and replayed everything. Our first date. Our first apartment. The Christmas we couldn't afford gifts, so we wrapped notes instead. Every smile that I'd mistaken for permanence. Every whispered promise that now felt rehearsed. And I thought about the man on the other end of that ring. See, did he know? Did he know she wore two faces? Or was he, like me, just believing what he wanted to believe? At 5:30 p.m., I left the house. Took the box with me. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just knew I couldn't keep it. I found myself driving without a destination, hands gripping the wheel too tightly, heart steady but heavy. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of the cafe where I first saw them. It was closed, but that didn't matter. I just needed to be somewhere real. I opened the box again, looked at the inscription, "Yours always, C." And I whispered, "Not anymore." That night, I wrote her a letter. Not dramatic, just clear. I told her I knew. About the ring. The man. The second life she'd stitched together behind mine. I told her I wasn't angry, just done. I left the ring on the desk, beside the envelope. I didn't ask questions. Didn't demand answers. That was the part of me she'd taken for granted, my silence. Now I was using it to leave. The next morning, before the sun came up, I packed a bag. Clothes. Documents. The hard drive with every legal file I'd spent the past month preparing. I walked through the house one last time. Every object, every corner, every framed photo suddenly looked staged. I locked the door behind me, left the keys in the mailbox, walked to my car, and drove away from the life I built for both of us, alone. She didn't call. Not at first. But 3 days later, she sent a single text. "Can we talk?" I didn't reply. A week passed. Another message. "I don't know what you found, but I miss you. Please." Still, I said nothing. Then came the email. Long, rambling. Apologetic. She admitted to losing herself, to confusion, to feelings that got too complicated. She never said his name. Never said affair. She didn't have to. She ended it with, "You were the one who gave me everything. I never should have asked for more." And that's when it hit me. She hadn't been chasing more. She'd just stopped valuing what she already had. That's the tragedy, isn't it? We spend so long giving someone our whole heart, and when they lose interest, we blame ourselves. Wonder if we could have been more. Better. Different. But I was never the problem. I was just the constant she mistook for the background. The giver she assumed would never stop giving. Until I did. It's been months now. I moved cities. Changed my number. Started over in a place where no one knows me as the husband who paid for everything. I rent a small place near the water. Mornings are quiet, peaceful. Sometimes I walk to the pier with a coffee and watch the boats come in. I still think about her. Not with hate. Not even sadness anymore. Just clarity. She wore 2 rings, and I only gave her one. The other? She chose that on her own. But the day I gave it back, I gave myself something too. Closure. And maybe that's all we really get in the end. Not justice, not perfect understanding. Just a clean line between what was and what we're willing to carry forward. She can keep the lace, the vineyard photos, the curated dream. I'll keep the silence that followed. It was the only honest thing left between us.